here we are
St. Louis.
in Bowling Green, Missouri.
There's 2 Bowling Greens.
Yeah. How about you update everybody about our Around the World tour?
Well, let's see. We are driving today to do a podcast in St. Louis, Missouri, and gotten some good views, lays of the land, and things that I never would have had the opportunity to see. Oh my gosh. Bowling Green Tractor has some huge equipment.
You don't hear that every day, do you?
No.
What, tell us the name of the podcast you're doing tonight. It's these
The Brighter Side of Blue.
4 or 5 cops.
I think they're 5, but I'll know more.
We'll know in an hour and 21 minutes.
Yeah. And it's The Brighter Side of Blue, and they interview people in law enforcement, I guess, that have a positive impact. And they do it at a restaurant in St. Louis.
And where does it, could be a live show.
Yes, it is a live show, and then it will drop.
Also on YouTube later?
Yes.
Okay. So the audio version's live, and then they edit the video.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, you know what? You'll all find out when we
We'll
do.
all find out together. Something else they're not lacking here. It's Dairy Queens and Casey's.
Look at that.
What?
No, I'm telling you, I think if people had to, like, self-sustain, even though this is the land of the farmers,
Right.
if you had to self-sustain in a Midwest region like this, I don't think people could do it. The number of people who get their full sustenance from fast food restaurants blows my mind.
Yeah, I feel like and is it just me, or there's less and less McDonald's?
I think it's you.
Really?
Just because you don't frequent McDonald's.
No, I don't. But I feel like that we don't see them as much. I feel like you know what? Just let me Google that real quick. How many McDonald's are there?
This, by the way, folks, is not alcohol. It is a shout out to Liquid Death, Convicted Melon Sparkling Water, okay? For the driver in the car.
Okay. There are basically 14,200 in the United States and 36,000 globally.
McDonald's?
McDonald's.
I would have thought there would be more.
More than 36,000?
How many Starbucks are there?
Well, that's my next.
That's where we go all the time. You never went there before you knew me, did you? Now we'll pass a Starbucks.
There are 38,000 Starbucks worldwide.
Well, I feel like it's a lot easier to throw a coffee shop in on a corner than it is McDonald's.
You know, and in Houston, there's Starbucks across the street from Starbucks.
Kristi knows me so well now that I don't even have to say, do you want to try? We'll pass and she'll say,
well,
do you want a
see?
coffee?
No, the new CEO is reducing the menu on Starbucks.
Yes. And did you also see that Starbucks is no longer upcharging for milk alternatives, which I think is a very big deal.
Okay.
I know for somebody like you that doesn't
drink coffee,
opt in for milk alternatives.
So they want to get, with less options, in other words, the turnover's higher.
They're doing the Costco.
Their goal is to get you in and out in 4 minutes.
Right. They want the Costco situation. Here's 2 choices, the best of the best. Choose what you want and go.
Right. And I guess if you don't have all the fancy, I don't know.
Well, they've been doing it long enough, they could probably really narrow down what it is that people, but I mean, I could see my grandmother's entire body quiver the other day when I ordered one coffee beverage that was like $7.25. She was like, that's what I'd spend on a whole meal for me and your papa. Like, and you're going to spend that on a drink?
Right.
Did you feel that too?
Yes. But isn't it funny how many knockoff Starbucks there are? Just like little coffee shops. I can't think of the name of the place.
I don't know. I kind of always had a barista in me that thought I could totally jive with like a plant library, like the little designer swag studio with a coffee shop inside.
Well, remember my girlfriend that I grew up with that we had dinner with in Vegas? Christina?
Yeah.
And she's like, I just went, and her husband makes bukus of money. And she's like, my kids were all in school. I went and became a barista at Starbucks to learn all the recipes.
I
And
think,
she goes, it was the best people watching ever.
right. I think it would be fun. I mean, yes, obviously there'd be stressful moments, but if you just had a quaint boutique, kind of like that place we went with Coley, that was the
Yes. The dog.
that
Yeah.
kind of energy.
That was a cool spot.
I could get down with that.
And then they had something that we got to go there.
What do you mean?
What did we buy to go in that coffee shop?
We bought lunch.
Yeah, but we bought something that they sold.
Oh, I bought, yes, because I was at the counter and I was looking over their menu and I was like, cardamom. I've never seen that flavor offered on a menu in my life. I actually love it. Most people don't even know what it is, and it's a very probably acquired taste. It's kind of like the bridge between chai and cinnamon, but just something else. Like you can't quite put your finger on it. And so I was like, I'll have a cardamom coffee. Well, I drank mine and then promptly went back to the counter and ordered 2 more before we left. And you were like,
I think Story was with us because he just got in his cat. And he said, I'll take one of those too.
Well, no, I took them both. One of them was for me later, and one of them was for me the next morning.
Okay, I thought that was Story's.
And so
I
went back over and I looked, and I was like trying to creep without creeping to see what the brand was. And I was like, and went and looked online and I ordered it from Amazon. And since then, I made it for my mom, I made it for Shanna, and they're like, yeah, it's an acquired taste, but for fall, it was great. I'll see if Mark can throw a picture of it in because I loved it. But
we'll have to get the name of that little shop in Lafayette, Louisiana, and it was so cute, and it was kind of it had kind of a little bit of a farm to table meets hippie vibe.
Right, but it's kind of one of my favorite things. Timber, our friend Timber, who's been on the show, he's like, get a plane ticket and maybe it's throwback to when I was little and my Mimi and Papa would throw me in the car and we'd go all over the country. I love driving places.
I'm glad you do.
Stopping places that we wouldn't see otherwise. And okay, I think you should tell everybody about what next week looks like, because by the time they see this, we'll be living in it. But I'm so excited for next week.
Yes, so we're going to leave here, I guess, Sunday and go to Kentucky. And we'll spend a week there, and we have our first donor salon, and really excited. I mean, we were hoping to get 30 people, and we're already up to 75 or 80.
Right. So, but being able to go back to an area where I lived for 4 years and drive around and, see all those things that have changed. And I'm such a foodie that finding all the little haunts that you would never stop in and have a bite to eat because, maybe it didn't hit the list of best of, but I think some of those smaller cities who've cultivated a food scene, I was just never impressed with San Francisco and what they had to offer, because the prices in order to provide
it's just insanity.
A luxury experience are so extravagant, and then the wait list to get in. I mean, you miss the experience before it even starts.
Well, it's this. Have you ever done the Napa thing and then you do the French Laundry?
No.
Okay. Well, it's exhausting. Everybody talks about the French Laundry and Thomas Keller and the famous chef, and it's such an experience. Remember when the Governor Newsom got in trouble?
Yes.
He took his people out to eat when he shut the whole state down. That's where he was French Laundry. And it is, first of all, it needs to come with a warning sign that it's going to be a 5-hour experience. Why they were ever even served bread in a place like that is beyond me. The food starts coming, and there's course after course after course, and that you're about 3 courses in, you're like, okay, I'm full, no more. No, we haven't even put a dent in it yet. And it's so exhausting I don't know, I just wish, it's almost like prepping for the Olympics.
But in a place like that, and maybe I didn't spend enough time out and around in certain social environments there, but Kentucky, you've already met a handful of people who were my friends, and now it's that envelope has opened and all of these people are saying, oh my gosh, you're coming to town and let me invite you to this. We've just been invited to a Friendsgiving with 60 people that neither one of us know. And I just don't think you get that kind of you don't even really get that from Houston. The people that I've met from Houston, I don't feel have that over welcoming, more so in College Station.
Yeah, I do. I feel like they have it in Houston. I guess you just have to be more immersed in it. I think just Texas across the board is such a welcoming place you know, people are like, oh, where are you from? You know, welcome. And, you know, maybe I would think that it's the people that has caused people to move there, not has anything to do with the taxes and all
those extra 1,100 people a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Moving to Texas.
I would think they would do it just because we're personable, but I'm sure there's a magnitude of other monetary reasons that people move there. But it's such a friendly place. I just feel like, I don't know, you can connect with somebody everywhere you go in Texas.
Well, it helps that you were already at the top and
connected
in Houston. But anyways, no, we've done this now. This is our third time to do a like cross-country road trip. And in 3 years, we've put almost 80,000 miles on this car. And my camera roll proves that we have stories to tell because, you know, and I'm trying to cultivate, like I'm trying to get Shannon to jump on a plane and come meet us. And I want to get a bus. I want to get a tour bus that I don't have to get an extra license to drive and just hit the road.
Well, Shanna's got one of those licenses. She can
take a nap in the back seat, throw the dogs in the car. What? Oh, didn't you just tell me about Elon Musk, his new bus?
Yes. What is it called? Elon, he just debuted it. I don't know when the man finds time to sleep. Tesla debuts the Robovan, and it is fancy.
I just need them to tweak that one issue of like getting locked in if something happens in an accident.
I know. Can you see that? Can you see?
I mean,
it looks fancy?
Looks good to me.
And I see that GMC has already invested like another $400 million in electric cars. And after this year, one of their, one of the Cadillac, I don't know if it's a sedan, if it's an SUV or what, but they're going to stop making the gas version. I just don't know if I can still get behind plugging my car in.
Well, that's what Mimi said. You know, she's like, I would do one of your cute little, because I had a Toyota Prius. And that to me made sense. Like, yes, you're going to save on fuel. You're going to be more economic. It made sense to charge the motor with the revolution of the tire and not have to plug it in. So I got 55 miles to the gallon. $20 would take me 550, 600 miles. The only problem is that after I started driving a much longer vehicle, it started to feel like a golf cart.
But at the same time, how many people look at their deal and go, oh, well, look, I've got 30 miles left to empty. I can wing it and go, and you may run out of gas, you may not. What do you do when you're in an electric car? You're screwed.
Did you see that picture? It was circulating a while ago. I think it might have been during the hurricane, but somebody had a Tesla and they had a generator stuck on one of those racks at the back, and they had it plugged into their car, charging it while they drove. And I was like, that's kind of genius. I can get on board with that.
I mean, it's just, and what do you do if somebody doesn't have a station?
That's never
been me. Can you plug in an outlet?
No, you have to have like a special outlet installed in your house. Like, we were just talking about how crazy it is that I remember when Tesla first launched their showrooms and people weren't even driving it yet, and you would hear
it's the #1 car company in the world, and they don't advertise. I just heard that statistic
I just
today.
want to breathe Elon's air.
Yeah.
Like just give me a day pass to that level of IQ. That's all.
You know, I had to laugh because when he was talking about that he had come in and acquired X, Twitter, and said, look, I want all these extra servers. Maybe they had servers in 3 or 4 places. He said, we just don't need all this excess. We're going to start trimming the fat. And one of the engineers that worked for him said, okay, we cannot take this down. It would take us 6 months minimum to move these servers. And he's like, no, I think you can do it in 6 weeks. He's absolutely impossible. It cannot be done. I don't think any of those people have a job today. So apparently Elon said his 2, I don't know if it's nephews or cousins, work for him, and they're both engineers. And so they got back in his plane and flying out of like North Palo Alto. And he said, you know, we could have technically just ripped the servers out ourselves today. And he looks at them and he tells the pilot, turn the plane around, go back. And they started just cutting lines and pulling it out, and this is how it's done. I just want to know when the guy sleeps.
I don't know. Next time we see him, we'll ask him.
I'm sure that should scare him to no end.
Right? Well, okay, so I have been asking you for like 3 days because I haven't had time with the election to give this much.
There was an election?
With much of my free time to investigate a topic that everybody's up in arms about. Enlighten us, Kristi.
P'Nut the Squirrel.
And Fred.
Oh, and Fred. I'm sorry. You know,
for somebody that you got mad nobody got airtime.
I know,
for.
I did get mad. I said, why does he not get any press, any good PR, and P'Nut gets it all? I think because P'Nut had a bigger following. But they...
Okay, start from the beginning. Who is P'Nut and who is Fred and how old were they and where did they live and why?
Okay, so they lived in somewhere upstate New York, I think. Not in the city. But... So 7.5 years ago, this guy, Mark Longo, was walking through Manhattan with his wife, and he found the squirrel had fallen out of a tree and was injured. So he scoops the squirrel up, they take it home, they nurse it back to health, and they try to turn him loose in the wild a few times, and he just can't adjust. I mean, which, you know, you're going to take something like that that's been raised inside,
right?
You know, he can't figure out how to fend for himself. So they kind of had an open door thing at their house. He would just come in and go. He'd play in the yard. He'd come back in with them. But for 7.5 years, he'd lived with them. This same thing happened, and they had acquired this raccoon the same way. In the meantime, they'd started a foundation, and they did wildlife sanctuary rescue. So you could, you know, bring an animal there to be rehabilitated.
Oh, so they rehabbed other animals?
Yes. And so apparently P'Nut alone had like 750,000 followers or something online.
And like not trained, but yes, this squirrel.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like he'd hold his hand out, the squirrel would come in, he would eat all of his meals with P'Nut. I mean, it's obvious that this squirrel felt very comfortable with his family. This was his life. And, you know, like I said, he wasn't in a cage. He wasn't, you know.
It wasn't like a hoarding situation.
No, it wasn't anything like that. And he got to play, and they had all kinds of, they didn't have children, so they had everything set up.
And the squirrel would have been dead if not for this couple.
Absolutely, it would have died. Well, apparently in there, where it starts to get a little dicey is they think that somebody turned them in that was potentially jealous of them. And I'm thinking, jealous because they have a pet squirrel? I don't get it. Well, they had an OnlyFans account.
The squirrel?
No, the owners of the squirrel. Of the squirrel and Fred, the raccoon. And so that there may have been some cross promotion or maybe some mention of the OnlyFans.
So they're using...
I don't think they used the squirrel in their videos, but they mentioned it maybe.
Using the leverage of P'Nut's fan base.
Of P'Nut's fan base to drive traffic to their OnlyFans.
I don't know who to be mad at.
Well, but OnlyFans is a legitimate...
Well, yeah, I mean, like, that doesn't... None of that even makes sense to me. Like, the jealousy, like... Okay, so take me then to the actual day that they come to confiscate these two animals.
It said 18 agents that they'd gotten a call that they thought potentially that Fred the raccoon and P'Nut the squirrel had rabies. Now, there was no signs, there was no outward whatever the signs that they look for.
I'd be like somebody calling me out of the blue and being like, look out, Kristi's got rabies.
Rabies, yeah.
Really?
And so the only way to truly test if they have it is they have to euthanize them and cut their head off and go in and do, I guess, a necropsy and figure out if they were positive.
So 18 armed agents.
Armed agents, federal agents, raided the man's house with long rifles and SWAT gear over this. The DEC, the Department of Environmental Conservation in New York.
And he still, to this day, has not
been notified by them, hasn't heard anything. The only information he's gotten is what he's seen in the news. And so they, that the only way to say that if they were or weren't rabid is to euthanize them. So he's not getting this, obviously.
Now, I don't understand, because if they actually had a sanctuary, right, and they were doing this with other animals.
Well, he's in the process of suing them.
Well, right, because he would have had to have had legal rights to rehabilitate wildlife.
Right.
Because I saw a thread on, I think it was probably Facebook, where all these people who rehab wildlife were saying it was their own fault because they're promoting a squirrel for fame, personal fame and gain, when they don't have the proper documentation. But that's...
Well, the problem is we have kids, children, women being trafficked every single day, and
they don't get that level of attention.
No. And it's like, are you kidding?
I mean, that's one of the biggest jokes there is.
I mean, I hated that P'Nut had to take one this severe, but I mean, at least it's bringing light to the corruption. I mean, New York State should be very embarrassed.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like, who, do they know yet who turned them in?
Turned them in, no.
They don't know?
No.
Now, who was this lady Karen you were telling me about?
I don't know if they were calling her Karen, and her name was Karen, lady that says they interviewed the owners, and they said that P'Nut was ratted out by somebody that was jealous, and the owners think that this was all based on jealousy.
Now,
they said that P'Nut helped steer followers to their raunchy OnlyFans page before he was seized from their animal sanctuary and euthanized by state officials. The couple's financial success, fueled at least partly by P'Nut, may have been enough to drive some of them to drop a dime on him.
Well, but I apologize, but isn't this a little bit like the Kim Kardashian sex tape situation? All it did was make her more famous. So whoever decided that P'Nut and Fred needed to lose their lives in order for these people to take their stuff down or be punished for it, I can't imagine the traffic it's actually driven to their OnlyFans.
Right. He said, "Did this do wonders to my OnlyFans?" Mark said of the site where P'Nut frolicked along with other animals, absolutely, it's making a lot of money from this. They said they bought their 350-acre farm near Elmira with $800,000 that they made in 1 month posting on their porn online. But
$800,000 in a month?
But P'Nut then began pulling his own weight with his separate family-friendly fan base. So he says he prides himself on being a squirrel dad. I could tag my squirrel dad, in other words, the G-rated account from the P'Nut video I posted, so it could get double the views.
Gotcha.
It said the Longos made headlines after the Department of Environmental Conservation raided their upstate home, P'Nut's Freedom Farm, and grabbed their lovable furry pets and his pal raccoon named Fred, with both critters being euthanized over rabies concerns because they were in close contact with humans.
That's such garbage. You know, like, I get the whole chimpanzee thing, like this animal that's stronger than a,
Yeah, that has to be live inside of a cage and, that protect other people.
Right, but these were two grown adults with no children in the home who were making this decision on their own. And if they wanted to expose themselves to rabies, good on them. But I'm sure they saw wildlife vets or, exotic animal vets, whatever. It's just garbage. And did you say this agency now has had how many bomb threats from the public?
In one day, they got over 10 bomb threats. So now, all of a sudden, of course, it's becoming a political issue. So now the Republicans in New York are starting a bill called P'Nut's Law, Humane Animal Protection Act.
It's true. It needs to happen. I'm sorry, but If that were me and I was Peanut's
was
mom,
so cute. Look at that little hat, the little cowboy hat.
how long do squirrels live in captivity?
I'm sure a fourth as long as they living on their $800,000 farm. Okay, they can live to be 15, 18 years old.
Wow. Yep.
So imagine he'd probably live a lot longer.
Poor family. I just think that's awful.
Yeah, squirrels can easily live up to 20 years.
Wow.
I mean, what's the little sugar glider marsupial?
Yeah.
How did they get those passed to sell those?
Well, I'm sure because they've like people who have sugar gliders. I don't know. Look at me.
I think we used to have those.
But I think that, there's this whole underground world of exotic animal trade that very little knowledge is passed around because
One of Sinclair's little friends used to have a pet chinchilla.
I mean, every state's different based on what you can and can't have. But I think the people who have things that know they're not supposed to have them, it's just like people who have drugs. They're not out there advertising, hey, I've got, a book bag full of methamphetamine in my trunk. They're not saying I have a, Monty Python whatever or, illegal primates in my back seat. They're keeping them underground. They're not telling people. They're not posting them on social media.
Yeah, well, the GoFundMe has raised let's see here like $220,000.
Well, that's just a memo to whoever Karen ratted these people out.
Yes, but I saw a friend of mine had posted, let's make, I don't know if her name was Karen or they were just calling her that, let's make her go, viral because this is what she did. So I started looking around and I'm thinking, I think she was from Texas, and I'm thinking, how did a woman from Texas get involved? And they interviewed this woman and she said, I found out about P'Nut with the rest of the country. I had nothing to do with it. Maybe the person that turned P'Nut in has the same name as me, but okay, this is a Texas woman. She claims that she never, I don't know, it's kind of, people have kind of backed off of her, so maybe they're satisfied with it. She had never had anything to do with it.
Well, whatever the case, it's a tragic outcome for P'Nut and Fred.
Yeah, she says she's the most hated woman on the internet, and she said, it wasn't me. I live in Texas.
Huh. All right, we'll give your RIP to P'Nut and Fred.
Poor Fred, poor P'Nut. We miss you, buddies. Makes me want to go rescue one. Let's see here.
What's the rest of the updates that we need to let people know? Oh, we need to let people know, if they haven't already, that they need to go check you out on the Rachel Uchitel podcast.
Yes. So in Misunderstood podcast, so Rachel just is one of the best interviews I've ever done. She's just such a cool chick. And Misunderstood, so go check it out. And then next week, Team Never Quit with Melanie and Marcus Luttrell comes out. This week they did Rob O'Neill. Mm-hmm. That, I wrote him a note. I said, it's going to be a hard act to follow. I mean, you take out Osama bin Laden. What the hell have I done? But, so that, by the time this comes out, that will drop. And all the funds, all the feels.
And after Louisville, we will head back through the Midwest and complete our tour for the month that we're on the road. But in the coming months of early next year, we are looking at possibly doing some on-location stuff in New York, in Florida, in maybe Ohio, LA. There's a lot on the list.
Got a lot of things lined up.
So if you're in any of those places and think, hey, girls, I would like to host a donor salon or get more involved in what you're doing, or I have something cool that I have to offer and would like to be featured on the podcast. Ironically, next week I'm hoping somebody that I had the privilege of meeting by chance just like probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. Quick story. I am super spiritual in the way that I believe that we're led by something bigger than ourselves. I'm not going to call it God. But there's a higher power that has nothing to do with me, but it's my job to be in tune with it. So one day, Shanna and Kristi and myself were driving home from Austin, and Shanna and I are having a conversation talking about how the universe guides us if we're willing to listen. And it had been a full moon, and the full moon had come out, and Shanna was like, I went out last night and I basically said some things and got them off my chest and just tried to release whatever negative energy might have been following me around. And I was like, I'm here for it. Like, I wouldn't be here if the universe hadn't brought me and deposited me right here. So I get it. That night we got home and I had made a sale on, one of those resale apps. And the purchaser of this purchase had sent me a message because the package hadn't been sent out by the UPS yet. And for whatever reason, I paid attention to her handle, and I wrote back and I said, look, here's your tracking information, but aside from that, can I ask you what your handle means on
Dreamweaver?
Not Dreamweaver, Dream Dog.
Okay.
And she wrote back and she said, well, yeah, actually, I am a doctor and I'm an author, and I just wrote a book called Radical Rituals, which you can get on Amazon. And she's basically studied so many different beliefs and spiritual guides, and I felt like invested her life in following intuition and healing yourself from past trauma and arriving to your exact purpose and destiny. And I was like, and the timing of the conversations literally happened within a minute of the conversations I had with Shanna that night, and then conversing with this doctor, Dr. Nikki Reese. And so she and I started messaging via text, and she's only a couple hours from where we'll be in Louisville, and I'm hoping that she gets to come up and we are going to interview her about her book for the podcast. But crazy things how that kind of stuff happens. And I'm about halfway through her book.
And the world is this big.
Right?
Yep.
So if you're here and if you're listening and you have something to offer that we should be offering, let us know. Hit us up at estrogen@listenkristi.com. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, always YouTube. Leave comments and we'll respond. And we've had a couple people reach out about the Skin Deep episode. I think there's a few people going in to see Jamie in the next couple weeks to get their faces touched up. And we will let you know how the podcast in St. Louis goes.
Perfect.
Say goodnight, Lucy.
Good night, Lucy.